You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, January 26th. We are just days away from the 49ers being back in the NFC Championship game, and we're feeling pretty good about the outcome being different than it was last year. And me and Laurie here are going to talk about some of the reasons why. But Laurie, how you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing fantastic. Today's been a good day for me, so I'm ready to get it rolling and continuing this Good Friday. Maybe honestly, I might sleep until Sunday cuz I need it, to be honest.
Because why not? I mean, at 49 fans, like if we can sleep, get any sleep before Sunday, we'll get it. I know Saturday night will probably be, the tossing and turning, a little nervous for the game, getting a little butterflies as if we're going to play. But, we're just excited for this game. So let's get into it like we always do. First, we're going to look at the weather. This game is being played in Santa Clara. This time, no rain in the forecast. So that should be good because as we saw, rain definitely played a role in last week's game against the Packers. So this time you're looking at highs of 73 throughout the day, lows of 53 throughout the night. This game kicks off at 3:30 Pacific time. So I would expect the weather at that point probably like 65 and up or around the 65 range, but I'm not a meteorologist, so that's just a guess on my part. But all that to say, it should be good weather for the 49ers in this one. No worries about any rain. Now, the next big thing here, the injury report seems to be pretty positive for both teams. The 49ers don't have anyone designated as out in this game, meaning Deebo Samuel is going to be playing. You don't even see his name listed on this injury report because that's right, he isn't. So the only players that are questionable for the 49ers are linebacker Oren Burks with the shoulder and defensive tackle Kalia Davis, who's been on IR but had his practice window opened with that high ankle sprain. Maybe a possibility he gets activated before Sunday. Not sure. But the biggest thing for the 49ers, Deebo, is back. This is huge for the 49ers. And for some of us, I think we felt like it was kind of a miracle that the 49ers got through a whole game and were able to get through that win despite everything they kind of had going against them in that one against the Packers. But this time they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it was it definitely stunk for me, as you know, especially last week when I was kind of pumping up Deebo, throw your bets in, guys, and I lost money because he didn't, he didn't really play at the end. So, well, through, I guess I don't remember exactly when
Like in
he
the first quarter
went out, but it was early.
Out.
Yeah, so that kind of stunk. But what concerns me is the type of injury, which is your shoulder, and he's such like a rough and tough guy, where it's tough to bring him down. Every single tackle he could potentially land on that shoulder. So I'm actually pretty surprised that he's not even like questionable or anything. Like usually they'll go through the whole week and just kind of make a team get prepared to maybe see Jennings out there taking some snaps. They're just like, no, like it's not happening. Like Deebo's going to be there. I thought that was kind of interesting that it's not even like questionable. It's just like he's going to play.
It's really just a matter of pain tolerance for him. Nothing's broken. I think that's why he was held out of the game against the Packers, because they just weren't sure, right? Like if there was anything broken. But once they got that confirmed that there wasn't, it's like, all right, he just has to feel well enough and be able to move that arm enough to be able to play in this game. Yeah, and as far as like how tough of a player he is and how hard he plays, he pretty much said he's not worried or he's not protecting anything in particular. Here's the clip that has been circulating of Deebo talking with the media earlier today.
play as physically as you do, but still trying to protect yourself?
I ain't protecting nothing.
How do you play as physically?
I mean, that's awesome.
I ain't protecting nothing. Love it.
He's not worried about it, so I don't
Yeah,
think
he's not babying.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good sign too that he doesn't feel scared going into it. I think that's going to let him play freely and not tentatively. But if I'm the or I think what I think the Lions will do, they're going to test that out real early. I'm sure they're going to try to lay some hits on him. But speaking of the Lions, as far as their injury report, it's pretty short as well. The only players who are going to be out is their left guard, Jonah Jackson. That's pretty notable. And their wide receiver, Khalif Raymond. They also have Hendon Hooker and Chase Lucas as the questionable players. But altogether, it feels like for both teams, more or less kind of healthy.
On that comment from Rohan, I want to talk about that.
the Gardner Johnson stuff.
Did you watch it recently? Like the clip of him talking earlier in the year about Deebo?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
man.
like, yeah, because Deebo's on the Kay Adams show and he was asked about it. And I mean, Deebo's just like the same. He just has the same thought on everything. It's like he was actually asked about Gardner Johnson earlier today when he spoke with the media, and he's like, he's got to strap up. He's got to strap it up. So I'm excited for that too.
CJ's a shit talker. He's always been. Like, he's the same type of guy when he was on the Saints, he's on the Eagles, and then he was able to back it up last week. So that's even more of a reason to kind of like Deebo needs to shove it in his mouth, because that's you can't allow that. You can't allow a player to talk shit and then back it up, because he got that pick, I think, right? So
yeah, last week, I believe, right?
Yeah, against the Bucks. Yeah, or he had a really good breakup. I don't remember what it was. Yeah.
Or was it Slay? I think it was Slay that had the interception at the end. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a great battle throughout this week, and just knowing how both of those two have been, chatting each other up throughout the season, I think it's very fitting that it all comes to this in this NFC Championship game. And we are going to see who is going to stand on business, but I know Deebo has been doing that all season, so I'm not too worried about him. He tends to have the final say in those matters, so we'll just have to see how that goes in this game. But I'm excited. I mean, obviously, Deebo playing in this game is huge just for the factor of him being there. You get, I think, favorable matchups. You're able to kind of manipulate the defense a little bit easier when he's there, just because teams have to be so aware of where he is at all times, similar to Christian McCaffrey. So having two guys that you have to be aware of at all times is huge for the 49ers. And I'm really liking this matchup for him. But let's just look at these two teams and how their offenses compare. You see the 49ers, they're third in points per game. The Lions are fifth. The 49ers are first in yards per play. The Lions are third. Successful play percentage, 49ers second, Lions fourth. Plays of 20 or more yards, 49ers are first, Lions are second. Red zone touchdown percentage, 49ers are first, Lions are third. So like you get my point. Like there's a lot of offensive fire for both of these teams. 49ers, of course, have the slight edge over the Lions in that regard. So that's why I think, like, if anything, it's going to come down to the defenses in this game. I think we know that both teams have good players on offense, but when it comes to the defense, the pads are going to do the talking. And so what we're looking at here is a chart from the regular season defense comparison. This illustrates how good the Lions have been on their rushing defense. On the other hand, not as good as on the passing defense. Kind of the opposite for the 49ers. They've been better against the pass than they have been against the run. And so that's kind of interesting for both of these teams as well, because I think both offenses are balanced. So each team's going to have to kind of attack each other in a slightly different way, just based on what each of these defenses do differently. I also want to point out from weeks 9 to 18, so like the second half of the season on, you see the offensive and defensive comparison for these teams. For one, I know we're not talking about the Packers anymore, but look at where the Packers are in this chart. Like, that tells you like how good the Packers were in the second half of their season. I think it wasn't really a fluke. I think us 49er fans kind of found out in a stressful way last week. But you see where the Lions are here, and the 49ers are, one of the most balanced teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, well, go back to your point on the defenses. Obviously, if it is a game of the defenses, the 49ers will definitely, they have that leg up on that one. The plays of 20 plus yards or more, that's huge. I think a lot of the 49ers 20 yards plus or more is actually from yards after the catch, and the Lions are 23rd in tackling, so that's going to be huge for the Lions to make sure they can get these guys down. And them being 23rd in tackling definitely gives the 49ers up a leg, even though our obviously they're first already in that category. But on the defensive side of the ball, you got to be able to stop that. So that's a huge mismatch there.
Yeah, exactly. So starting with the cautious matchups that I want to talk about today, last week the 49ers allowed their first 100-yard rusher in like the first time in a long time. Definitely the first time this season, and most of it came on one play from Aaron Jones. That I think perfectly encapsulated all of the issues with the 49ers run defense. One, not setting the edge, and two, maybe like the safety play wasn't great on that play. Bad effort, bad angle. So those are the things the 49ers cannot afford to have happen again against this Lions team, because their run game is on another level. And they don't just have one guy. They got two guys who are just as effective for them. And between these two running backs, the Lions have had 14 games with at least 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. That's tied for second most such games with Baltimore. So David Montgomery, he finished with 1,015 yards in the regular season. Jahmyr Gibbs, who didn't really even get an expanded role until sometime mid-season, he finished with 945 yards. And as you can see on these charts here, these two next-gen rushing charts, it kind of illustrates the roles that these two have. Like, Montgomery is the short yardage goal line back. He's a little bulkier. He can still get some 10-yard plays here and there. But for the most part, more of the short yardage guy. Then you look at Gibbs, and he works from everywhere on the field. Montgomery, on the other hand, is more kind of up the middle inside. But Gibbs he's very
catching it
explosive.
out the backfield too.
That too. That's another thing. And I want to mention that as well, because Gibbs' receiving yardage totals in the first two playoff games were 43 and 40. That's just receiving yards alone. If the 49ers do take an early lead in this game, I would expect to see more Jahmyr Gibbs than Montgomery. So just something to look out for, just because he's so explosive. 5.4 yards per attempt this season. Definitely going to keep the secondary linebackers on their toes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions kind of run on like a hot hand type of running back, where it's just like, whoever is really bulldozing those guys, whoever has the hot hand, they're going to go with them. That's why Jahmyr Gibbs has kind of gotten a bigger role as the season kind of came to, I don't want to say a close, but towards the end of the season, just because he's doing better. Montgomery, he's not as good when running to the right side. He's like, looking at these stats, he is like, he does really well when running to the left. I don't know why. Obviously it's an offensive line type of thing. But I just think, the 49ers do have to watch out for it, because when you look at their losses, you look at the running backs total yardage, or not just the running backs, but just how much they give up in runs. And it's 160, 134, 102, 109. And then Green Bay, they kind of struggled against. They allowed 136 yards. And the Lions have a better offensive line. And yeah, right here, the different concepts they're running.
Yeah, and I shared this.
outside zone.
I shared this last week. We were focusing on the Packers then, and the comparison between the two. But, again, to just describe what we're seeing here, this is the success rate by run concept. You see the Lions fourth on this list as far as the comparison of how the 49ers defend against the outside zone. Their defensive success is negative 2.9%. The Lions' offensive success when running outside zone is 5.4. So a difference of 8.2%. So obviously that favors the Lions in that regard. Now, a different topic here is that the 49ers are the second and third best when it comes to inside and outside zone runs. But, we're talking about the Lions run game right now. So, yeah, as you can see, they do have the advantage against the 49ers, running that outside zone.
And what they do with that outside zone too is, they'll kind of run a little play action off that, it kind of causes those defensive linebacks to kind of sit a little bit and wait and see how the play runs out. So, the more that they run that, the more that the 49ers linebackers may sit and wait. And that'll give more time for the running back to kind of get upfield. So that outside zone has been pretty successful.
Yeah, it's so important this week for the 49ers to set the edge against this team. I think Chase Young definitely needs to do a better job at it. He was kind of giving that up a number of times last week. So I think he needs to have some better discipline. You're playing for a contract, man. It's the playoffs now. Everyone's watching. So hopefully he has a better day. And that's why, when I saw that Kalia Davis had his practice window open, that kind of made me think, what if they activate him before this game, just in case Chase Young struggles setting that edge again. And maybe they put Eric Armstead on the outside. And then have Kalia Davis, rush from the middle. So just something I thought of. I don't know if that's the 49ers plan. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. But, yeah, that's how the Lions unlock their passing game. It's with their runs. So first and foremost, and it's very important for the 49ers to, get that done, or it could snowball.
Yeah, filter everything inside, because you don't want to get that. Let them get outside at all. Gibbs is just too fast. Maybe with Montgomery, that can be okay. Because he's obviously not as fast. But giving up that outside, it's not good. Especially when you play like a wide 9 defensive front. So it's just really surprising that they're not able to do that. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you have one of them going inside,
that's you're
that's
shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly. So that's what we've been seeing. And so that's one of my cautious matchups for the 49ers. That's definitely, their main task at hand. The other cautious matchup for me is Aiden Hutchinson. And, really because he's going to be lining up against you guessed it, Colton McKivitz, I think for most of this game. In his last 4 games, Aiden Hutchinson has accounted for 8 sacks and 18 quarterback hits. That includes a sack that he had on Baker Mayfield last week. He has a pressure rate of 23.3%, a hurry rate of 15.5. Both of those put him at 4th out of 38 edge rushers this season. And he does usually line up all over the line, but I doubt if I'm the Lions, I wouldn't even bother lining him up against Trent Williams. Maybe a couple times, see what you can get to
I don't
Brock
see
Purdy's
that.
blind side. But it's if I'm the Lions, I'm putting him over Colt McKivitz.
Yeah, just let him work that all game. Yeah.
Exactly.
And they run so many different switches with the defensive line. Obviously not Hutchinson as much. But them kind of they'll rush number 55 Barnes. They'll rush Barnes sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
He kind of gets some blitzes in there as a middle linebacker, so you have to kind of watch out for him too. He's doing really well.
That's a good point.
So it's not just Aiden Hutchinson. It's all of this defense and how they're able to kind of run their switches, and they'll run different they'll I don't want to say press, but they'll play like off press a little bit with their secondary, and just kind of give them a little bump with the wide receivers, and just to see if it'll kind of throw off any timing. So it does allow that defensive line to get there. So Hutchinson's is definitely a guy to look at. But definitely keep those other guys in mind when it comes to running those switches and things like that. So
Yeah, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on Brock, not just like, literally, but also mentally, because he kind of has to account for that and think about, okay, which guy's blitzing here? What does that mean as far as the protection goes? Because there were a few times last week against the Bucks that you had free rushers coming to Baker Mayfield, and that was kind of they struggled with that several times throughout the game. It's kind of good that the 49ers got to see that just a week before, right? So they can kind of be prepared a little bit better for it. But yeah, I mean, definitely something to look out for. And Purdy's going to have to be aware of that on the field. I think as far as like, chipping Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, I think they should. I think Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, they can help out in that. And I do think that with Deebo being out, that does kind of give them that flexibility to be able to do that again. Because let's say Deebo was out, then you have Kittle chipping, and then he's running a route a little later than everyone else. So that would just potentially be a recipe for disaster as well. So Deebo
that's
being
why
in
it's
is
so
obviously
bad.
good.
Yeah, that's why the offense looks a little bit different, obviously, when Deebo's not in the game, because you're
Mm-hmm.
pretty much taking Kittle away. And that's, you can't have two missing playmakers.
Yeah.
One is okay, but with it being Deebo, is just, he's such a good run blocker too.
Yeah, he
Like,
is.
not just like defending the pass rush. Talking about running outside. That's a whole it's a whole dynamic of the offense. So it kind of makes the team a little more one dimensional when he's out. So can't have Kittle block every play.
It definitely does make them one dimensional. But he's gonna be it, guys. So we don't have to worry about that. But look, is staying on the Lions' offensive side of the ball. Well, I guess I'm not staying on it because we were just talking about Hutchinson. But going back to the Lions' offensive side of the ball, one guy to be aware of that I'm definitely going to be aware of is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I would mention Sam Laporta too, but I just have a lot of trust in Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw. They might struggle against him just because Laporta is a beast, and he's kind of been heavily involved in that offense. But I think I like that matchup a little bit better for the 49ers than I do Amon-Ra St. Brown against potentially Ambry Thomas, because Ambry Thomas with those 2 PIs last week, it left us all a little bit iffy about him as a whole, even though like he kind of finished the second half of the season pretty well. I think we lost some confidence in Ambry, and hopefully he didn't lose confidence in himself, because as we know, when it comes with corners, that could also snowball. So hopefully he plays a better game. And the reason that you got to be aware of St. Brown for sure is because 8 of 14 targets for 77 yards last week against the Bucks. He also had a touchdown. And he has 15 passes for 187 yards and a touchdown through the last 2 games, the Lions playoff games. And so he now has 100 yards or a touchdown in 16 of his 18 games that he's played this season. So he's making an impact no matter what for this Lions team. He's heavily involved. Here's what I'll say. He he's about 50-50 on the outside and from the slot, 49.1 out wide, 49.3 in the slot. If he's in the slot, that means Diamador Lenore is going to be on him. I feel good about that. I do. If he's on the outside, depending on where he lines up, he could be lined up against Ambry Thomas if the 49ers are in nickel. I think the way you avoid this matchup entirely, Ambry Thomas on Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think you have Mooney Ward shadow him. That's
I was
kind of what
just
I'm
about
hoping
to
the
say that.
49ers do. I hope
And-
they do that.
And there has been games where I'm looking at the snaps by position where Thomas, it's literally like in week 14 he had 26 snaps on the left and 26 snaps on the right.
Mhm.
He can switch to both sides depending on how the matchups. And I just think it wouldn't be a good idea for him to be going up against him because they're clearly the best receiver. So
Yeah, I think they would be avoiding a lot of like potential risk if they just go with shadowing Amon-Ra. And on the other side, then you'd have Jameson Williams, right? So he's a speedster, which would also worry me. But I think as long as Ambry tries to keep him in front of him, it wouldn't worry me as much because he seems like more of a role player than anything. Like they're really just trying to throw to him deep. He's not as involved as Amon-Ra. So yeah, for that reason, I hope they do it, but we'll see. I just saw this stat. So only 33.8% of wide receiver receptions allowed by 49ers have come from the slot. That's 9th in the league. But they have allowed a lot of touchdowns out of the slot, 9 touchdowns this season. But as far as receptions goes, Lenore has done a good job holding down the fort. I don't blame him for the touchdowns because I think, the slot's just pretty hard to defend, especially, in the red zone when, you got those quick slants or something like that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they give Ambry some help as well. I know that was something that a lot of people noticed. Logan Ryan, at times wasn't doing him any favors. So we'll see if the 49ers plan to play Jair Brown in this one. I know that maybe it seems like it's heading that way. We'll see. There's been a couple clues to kind of indicate that, but I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean,
for the favorable,
keep Laporta in mind too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely. I don't know if my internet lagging a little bit.
Yes.
Been having issues with Xfinity.
You're at about 8 pixels right now.
Really? Okay.
But you'll come back.
As long as you can hear me, or as long as I don't disappear, I think we're all good. But I'll just
let's go. I'll take the slot, dude.
You take the slot. Yeah, Keith in the comments says Steph Bosa in line and Laurie in the slot. I mean,
let's do it. Who got the outside though?
Do that.
Keith, you gotta step up, bro.
Well, I'm guessing I'm outside, right? Or no? No, in line, I guess. In line and in slot. Yeah, okay. Keith, you outside.
You got your hand in the dirt, dude.
True. All right, well, let's get to these favorable matchups for the 49ers. Let's start to feel good about this one, all right? I want to start with Brock Purdy. And I guess here we're looking at the defensive tendencies of all the teams that are in the playoffs. Of course, Lions here towards the bottom. Cut out some of the teams that have already been eliminated. So as far as average depth of target that the Lions are giving up, 9.5. Keep an eye on that on Sunday. They've run a lot of cover 3, kind of around the league average, I guess I would say. But, again, something to keep an eye on in this game. I actually like this game a lot for Brock Purdy. For one, because it's not going to be raining. And also, if you look at what the Lions have given up to quarterbacks as of late, it has not been pretty. 411 yards to Nick Mullins. Excuse me? 411 yards to Mullins? That's crazy. 345 yards to Prescott. 396 then again to Mullins. Matthew Stafford 2 weeks ago, 367 yards. And then Baker Mayfield last week, 349 yards. Both Mayfield and Stafford had multiple touchdowns against this Lions defense as well. Opportunities there.
Do you even know who their corners are? They're not good. So,
yeah, I mean,
and if they're running cover 3, that's putting a lot of pressure on them. And so I think Keith got a point, man. Aiyuk is going to be wide open because that cover 3 is going to leave those corners. I don't want, I'm not saying like on an island because obviously they'll be backpedaling, but at the same time, that's leaving that slant pretty open. So.
Yeah, Alien to You in the comments says, I didn't realize Lions pass defense was that bad. I think part of it is because their run defense has been so good. Like they're like top 5 run defense. I think they're like the 2nd ranked run defense. So, that'll have teams throwing a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, I think their cornerback play has definitely aided that as well. You mentioned their corners. I think their best corner is Brian Branch, and he's their rookie. So
he's good.
I think, he's really good. And like you mentioned, they like to have him, on those blitzes every once in a while. So something to keep an eye on. But I think the opportunity is going to be there for Brock Purdy, and Cameron Sutton is one of their outside corners, and he's allowed the most passing yards, and the 3rd most yards per reception, and the 5th highest average depth of target of 75 cornerbacks with a minimum of 400 coverage snaps. That's not good. He also has allowed a plus 22.1 EPA per target and a 42.3% success rate in zone coverage. So I think he's the weak link that the 49ers are going to want to attack in this game. And, the other thing about the Lions, they play a lot of man coverage. And actually that should help Brock Purdy as well, because look at these numbers for Brock Purdy against man coverage. Number 1 in yards per attempt, number 1 in EPA per play, number 1 in passer rating, number 1 in passer rating under pressure, number 2 in EPA per play under pressure when he's facing man coverage. So this feels like a recipe for a big Purdy bounce back.
Yeah, what they'll kind of do like on the outside is they'll have like the slot to the outside with the corner, and like the slot will get the flat, and then the corner will just back up, and it looks like single high, but the corners are just covering man to man, and it's pretty much across the board with single high. So just as long as you have some crossers to make that safety choose, and just as long as that corner gets burned, which is highly likely, it could get ugly through the air.
Yeah, exactly. And so if the 49ers don't have success running the football, I think there's still opportunity for them to, have a way with the Lions in this game. Of course, as someone mentioned, Rohan mentioned, they're opportunistic. Like they will, kind of bait you into some interceptions and things like that, as we saw, last week with Baker Mayfield. So that's one thing that Brock Purdy has to be careful of. I know early in the game against the Packers, he nearly threw a pick, kind of became a shell, a little after that until, the game-winning drive. But I think for the most part, Purdy has done a good job taking care of the football. So he'll have to continue doing that against this team.
I mean, I don't think he's done a great job. I mean, you didn't say great.
Okay,
I'm not saying you said great. But it's just like, how can you mess up so early and just throw it to the defender's hands? It's like you're just anticipating but not seeing. Like he really has to see it. It's just like those switches, man. Like he just the linebacker is supposed to have a certain depth, and he's anticipating that. And all the Green Bay Packer defensive guy, all he did was take a couple steps back, and he just threw right in his chest. It's just like he really has to pay attention and really make those reads. Kind of stick in the pocket a little bit longer. He's fine when it comes to that. Kittle got a touchdown when he did that. Just hold on to it. Just don't throw it. I know it's all about anticipation as being a quarterback, but you can't make mistakes like that. And like they said in the chat over here, sometimes it's just these safeties are just in the right place at the right time. They're getting tip passes, but that's all they need to do. They don't need to pick off routes or run the routes for the wide receivers. They just need to be in the right place at the right time, and that's all that matters. So, you have to take care of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And they have been in the right place at the right time for, a lot of different plays. That's kind of where they have had some success. The other thing I wanted to mention with Purdy, this might surprise some people, but I saw this and I was pretty surprised myself. Brock Purdy against the blitz. We say he's so good against the blitz. Well, from weeks 1 through 14, and when he played last season, he was as well. From week 15 on against the blitz, his numbers have dipped. So this is something to be aware of because, for one, Detroit aligns more defenders and blockers in the box at the 3rd highest rate, and they have the 5th highest pressure rate at 40%. Over the last 2 months, they've been blitzing at a higher rate as well. So something to be aware of in this game for Brock, and hopefully he has some hot reads ready because it might come down to that early in the game. I think they're going to want to test this and see where Brock Purdy's at, try to rattle him early in the game.
If you guys aren't here just for Steph talking, join this podcast for these stats, because these graphics, bro, I'm telling you, this is elite. You're not even seeing this on ESPN on high levels. Come on, look, Opta Analyst.
Yeah, shout out Opta Analyst, which is where I grabbed these screenshots from. They did have a nice breakdown, so I can't take all the credit, but
you find it, you do the work,
I did the research. I did the research. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on here. I will end this conversation on Brock on a really high note, though, because I know, this one was a bit of a downer. Lions defense has allowed 69 passes of 20 yards or more this season. That's most in the league. So again, there's going to be opportunities for this team. And if Brock Purdy has a good day, there's another guy who's going to have a good day. And his name is Brandon Aiyuk. And I'm going to read off this tweet here. Lions are 3rd worst in EPA per pass attempt when using 4 DBs, according to Football Sports Info Solutions. 49ers often force defenses into that grouping by using 2 tight ends or Kyle Juszczyk. Against 4 DBs, Brandon Aiyuk averages 4.6 yards per route run, 83% success rate, and 16.9 yards per target. I'd say that's pretty good.
83% success rate. That's amazing right there. And just the type of defense they run, man, it's gonna be wide open for Aiyuk. You just, Purdy just has to do his job, which I think he'll do. And Aiyuk could kind of go off. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not saying to bet on him because I don't want to throw that out there.
That didn't go well last week.
No, so I'm gonna just shut up.
This isn't a betting. This isn't a betting.
Not a betting podcast. Yeah, yeah.
We gotta make that very clear.
And that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Brandon Aiyuk, his rankings among wide receivers, this is including the playoffs, people. His burn percentage is 1st. His burn yards per target is 1st. His big play percentage is 1st. His percentage of catches for first downs is 1st. Average yards at catch is 2nd. 12.9 average yards at catch. Yeah, that first down one is crazy to me because he's been doing this all season. And I had a stat for that too, believe it or not. So 64 of his 78 receptions have resulted in first downs. Brandon Aiyuk, that's 82.1% of his catches have gone for first downs.
Wow.
And so I think we're going to see a lot of this on Sunday. And I think, I'm thinking the Lions are going to be a little like worried about Deebo Samuel and what is he going to do in this game. And look at the shiny object. Brandon Aiyuk goes off. I think that's what I'm predicting here. I like it. I like it. And to take it even further, the Lions are giving up big games to wide receiver ones already. So there's even more reason to feel good about Brandon Aiyuk. Mike Evans last week, 147 yards, a touchdown. Puka Nacua the week before that, 181 yards, a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, 192 yards, a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, 227 yards, a touchdown. You get a touchdown, and you get a touchdown, and you get a touchdown. You get over 100 yards every time you play against this team. So, yeah, if I'm Brandon Aiyuk, I'm licking my chomps with this matchup.
I'm putting $5 down. I'm just saying.
Yeah, she's like, you swayed me. Hey, I mean, that's what we do, I guess.
Yo, it's only $5. Come on.
I mean, Brandon Aiyuk touchdown. What is it? Anytime touchdown. There you go.
Yeah.
Put it down. Which is crazy because actually Brandon Aiyuk hasn't even been like a huge like red zone guy. He hasn't had that many touchdowns this year, but I don't know. Against this team, it might look kind of good. So just something to consider if you do bet. But that's not betting advice, just saying. The other favorable matchup for this team, 49ers defensive line against this Lions offensive line. And I know what you're thinking, Steph. This is the second best offensive line in the league. What are you talking about?
That's what I was thinking when I read this topic.
Well, let me tell you. Well, this might be a bit of a homer pick, right? The 49ers are 7th in the NFL in pressure rate, 39.6. But they've been disappointing, like, as of late. I'm not going to lie to you. They have been. And I think last week we saw the pressure was there, but it didn't really get to Jordan Love because, he moves out of the pocket. He makes the throw off his back foot. I mean, he doesn't care about pressure, Jordan Goff, however, is a different story. And he's been fortunate enough to have only been pressured 33% of his dropbacks this season. That's the third lowest rate of any passer. So, yeah, he's operating behind this very good Lions offensive line. But just the reason that I feel good about it is because the name I have circled here, that is the name of Coyote Awusikia. I think that's his name.
Awusika?
Awusika, there you go. He's the left guard who's going to be playing in place of Jonah Jackson. Now, I know at the top of the show, we talked about the injury report. Frank Ragnow was not on the injury report. I mean, that's crazy to me because the dude has a sprained ankle and knee, but he's playing in this game, which I think we all expected. I don't know what percentage he's going to be at, but I think we can just assume with 2 injuries, he's probably not going to be 100%. So that's where I think there's going to be a window of opportunity for the 49ers here, especially in the interior.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard, and this is just hearsay, that Goff hasn't played as well when his offensive line was injured because he's a statue out there. I'm pretty sure I threw a bet of him getting a yard and a half. A yard. All I needed was a yard and a half.
Way.
And he didn't get it. He didn't get it. He's not running away from anything. I mean, he's not running forward from anything. He's running backwards. So that kind of pissed me off. But I mean, besides that, yeah, a yard and a half. It was just like, are you kidding me right now? You can't get a yard and a half. But that's the thing. Like, but that's why they use play action with Goff. And that's why their offensive line doesn't have to like play. They don't have to be stellar because just the way that their play style is they're going to give their quarterback time because he's going to be rolling out, stopping, planting, then throwing.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the run game because I think the run game sets up that play action, right? And so the 49ers have to stop that if they don't want to get gashed by the play action. So I feel good, though. If this is going to become a game where the 49ers, like I said, if they get into an early lead and the Lions are playing from behind with this injured offensive line, I feel good. I feel good because, like you said, Jared Goff is a statue. You just have to get pressure on him. Last week, it was like, okay, pressure isn't enough because Jordan Love is going to escape or he doesn't care. Jared Goff is a different story. If you get pressure on him, it's game over. He's going to potentially turn the ball over. At the very least, he's going to maybe throw it away. He's going to, have an errant throw or
he's
something.
He's going to force it. And
Yeah,
that's what he does
exactly.
in the red zone. That's why, like, it's harder to kind of run that play action in the red zone because you don't have as much space for the play to develop because there's not a lot of space. There was actually one play against the Bucs last week where he was under pressure in the red zone and he underthrew it to someone in the end zone and it almost was a pick. I don't know how the guy dropped it. But the red zone is going to be that place where the 49ers need to put pressure on most.
Yeah, definitely.
I really can't believe this.
Ron said that Goff's over-under this week is set at 1.5 yards again. So this is, scrambling or rushing yards.
Dude, I cannot because I can't take the under because watch him go over because I the worst luck ever. 1.5. I really can't believe it's set at that again. They're laughing at us setting that over-under right there. Like, are you kidding me?
Oh, God, that's bait right there because you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah, of course, right?
That every day. Take that any day. But yeah, no, you got to remember who the quarterback is, and he is a statue. He has the fewest scrambles this season. He has just 4 and the 6th most throwaways when he's under pressure. His EPA per play in a clean pocket is number 7. When he's under pressure, it drops to number 28. This dude is a completely different dude under pressure. And let's just say he's not under pressure. And let's just say he gets a throw off. He likes to throw over the middle. 57.1% of his throws are between the numbers this season. That's the highest rate in the league. I think this plays into the 49ers' hands because the 49ers have 2 really good linebackers that like to crowd that area. This is where they're best, the 49ers defense. They're allowing just a 73.3 rating on throws between the numbers. That's the lowest in the league. And opposing quarterbacks have 6 passing touchdowns and 17 interceptions on those throws between the numbers against this 49ers defense.
Dude, look at these charts, man.
That's big. Look at these charts. I mean, when it fits my narrative, I love to share a good chart, I love a good chart. So
that's what the best writers do, bro. It doesn't matter about anything else. That's why I'll hate on PFF, but I'll use their stats in my article.
Right.
Better believe it.
Right. They, once in a while they'll be useful. So yeah, I mean, I think that's where the Lions offense likes to operate, and that's where the 49ers defense is most successful. And so in defending those throws, the 49ers defense EPA per attempt ranks 2nd. Their success rate ranks number 3rd. They're only allowing 45% success rate on those throws. Only 5.8 yards per attempt on those throws. That's number 4. They're number 1 in interception percentage, number 1 in touchdown percentage. So yeah, I think this is big for this team. And that's where St. Brown actually does most of his work too, or gets most of his receptions, is between the numbers. So if the 49ers continue to defend that area of the field as they have been, I think it could go a long way in limiting St. Brown as well.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be their go-to. That's why it's not a good idea to have Ambry kind of just stay in his one spot because they'll just leave St. Brown on him, um, all game. So
All right. The charts are over. We're at the end here. What are your score predictions? And live chat, I know you guys are there. Let us know what you guys are thinking too.
this is an interesting one. I thought that the Packers weren't going to play as good as they did.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep in mind that what was week 17, week 18, what was that like for the 49ers in that bye week? They were already first place. They're checked out. It definitely took some time for them to kind of shake off the rust.
Yeah.
So like I'm thinking that this is a game where I'm hoping that I'm right, where the 49ers kind of roll with this one. And yeah, the matchups are good for this to be a good game. But I just think this is the 49ers year. Yeah, it's great that the Lions are finally here, since 1991. They never seen a Super Bowl. It's amazing. The NFL needs that. The Detroit Lions fans need that. But Eminem's Mom Spaghetti is going to have to sit down because I don't think that he's going to be cheering at the end of this game. We did it again. No, I think the 49ers win this one. I think it's going to be 28-17. That's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
I mean, it could be higher,
Somewhat
but I
low
don't want to go
scoring,
too
yeah.
much higher. Like I like the 36 score. But I'm just not sure because if there's a lot of running, then the clock's going to get run down and there's not going to be enough time for these high scores. If the Lions decide to just keep handing it off to Gibbs and then the 49ers are forced to throw, which they could be because the Lions secondary is worse than their run defense. So it could be kind of a mismatch like that where the 49ers go through the air and the Lions try to catch up on the ground and there's just not enough time for them. So yeah, what did I say? 28-17?
28-17. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so mine, I'm going to stick with what
21.
I've been sticking with, which is the 49ers score over 30. I feel like that's a good bet, like in every game. So I'm going to stick with it. It didn't work out last week, but this week I'm going 33-17. So close. You're predicting 17 for the Lions. I am too. But I think the 49ers score 33. And I'll share this as well. I know, some people are saying or expecting, Lions to put up some more points. I thought this is interesting. Goff's yards per pass attempt average dips from 8.1 at home to 7.1 on the road. They also average 18.8 points in their 5 outdoor games this season. And they're averaging 11.8 fewer points outdoors and indoors. This is an outdoor game. They like playing at home on that turf because it makes them fast, and that, helps their
No wind.
that helps their explosive offense and their playmakers. They'll be a little slower this time around. And the 49ers are used to that. They're not going to be slipping this week on defense. So I don't know. I think, 17 points to me is reasonable for this Lions team, despite how explosive their offense has been this year. So I'm gonna stand on business on that. But all right, we are nearly at an hour, so I think this is a good time to cut it. This has been a hell of a preview show. I think we really deep dived into some of these numbers and some of these matchups. So Laurie, thank you so much. Thank you everyone who tuned in the comments and who appreciate, the work that we put into putting these shows together. Really appreciate you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the game on Sunday. Try not to be too nervous. All right. We still got to eat and we still got to get some sleep Saturday night. So make sure you guys get that in. But hopefully next week, me and Laurie might be back here again, or in 2 weeks, talking about a Super Bowl matchup. All right. Wouldn't that be nice? All right. Okay. With that, have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Peace.